right, so Taurus, this one is for you. Hi, Taurus. This is Tarot Illumination with your singles mini love and relationship report for October, the mid-late October, early November season, okay? We're trying to do these new playlists for singles in the future, and they're going to come in the middle of the month, and that's just how it is. So we're going to make the best of it. You've done this before, I'm sure. So watch for your sun, moon, and your rising. Make the best of it. Reinterpret as you need. I also invite you to stop, start, and pause as needed in order to integrate these questions with the reading and the spread itself as you go along. Okay? Now, cards are already well shuffled in advance, but we're going to take it to the last second so that you're a witness. No jumpers, no flyers, no reversals. And then we're going to go for it. All right? So here we are. All right, Taurus, let's see what's happening. Let's see what the little story is for you guys. And let's go from there to here. All right. So what would you be radiating right now in terms of love? And in that case, what would you potentially be attracting in terms of love? Because we're allowing for the laws of attraction, okay? Who would they be? What would they be like? What sort of love would they radiate? That would be over here. And since you guys know how we do this on Tarot Illumination, it isn't just about you and the other. It's about the relationship itself. So there's you, the other, and there's the relationship on the understanding that the relationship has a life and identity and a structure of its own. There we are. And what would be the momentum of this relationship through this time period and beyond, or the prospects? So there we go. Now in a second, we're just going to look at the bottom card here. We're going to call that the weather, circumstantial energy that is surrounding the whole thing. And you, dear Taurus, are going to take full advantage of that. The weather is not going to own you. Your circumstances and conditions are not going to own you. You're going to own it, okay? So it doesn't matter what the weather is. You're going to own it and figure out how to make the best of it. And you have the King of Pentacles. So you might be surrounded by circumstances or evidence or conditions that might appear in the form of a person. It might as a reflection of you as well. It could be that, let's just say, when you look around at the sky and the universe around you, you're seeing how you are coming into a chance where you can radiate at your own dignity of self. And that might be getting reflected back to you by a potential significant other who is very dignified and regal in their own way. And it's not all about them. It's all about what they can do for you in terms of making best use of resources. The King of Pentacles did not get there overnight. The King of Pentacles worked their way and earned their way to the very, very top of the pile. And they love being generous and kind to those who are worthy. So you might be in a situation where you have the potential to attract someone like this, or you might be radiating this enough yourself where you're starting to feel it in your environment where you could attract someone like this, or someone like this could be attracted to you. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so this would be your kind of vibe here. Okay, so in some way or other, dear Taurus, you might be, let's say, trying to be very clever about a certain situation where there might be a juggling match going on where you've got a lot on your plate and you're trying to conduct yourself very, let's say, astutely through a situation or a time period right now where you're going to have to be either very shrewd, very, very smart, very agile, very sneaky, or very deceptive in some way or another in order to get through this period. Now, it doesn't have to be negative. It could just simply be that you're going to have to be on very high alert so that you don't trip over yourself or trip over others. And it could happen through a few simple words. Through this period here, Taurus, it could be very, very significant, like the energy of words. In other words, Be very careful of what you say, where you say it, when you say it, who you say it to, why you say it, and how you say it. You know, tone and context. Very, very significant right now, because it's almost like you've got nothing else to lean on except your intellect and your words and your thoughts and your expressions. And thoughts are things. They do have consequences. And this could get you kind of in a bit of a jam, because if you slip up in some way or another by trying to, like, let's say, get through a very challenging situation where you might feel forced, where you have to behave in ways that are less honorable or dishonorable, that you don't even like doing, but you feel forced to have to be there anyway, like deceiving yourself, deceiving others, or others deceiving you in one way or another, then you just have to be extremely careful, because this could easily come back on you. And obviously you don't want that. So, especially when you've got an opportunity to be relating and conducting yourself in a very honorable, regal, let's say down-to-earth manner that is very, very unambiguous. So, it's just like, it might be just a very awkward time period for you, Taurus, to live through right now. And we'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. So what sort of person would you attract? What kind of love energy would they be radiating given this situation? Okay, let's just say caution. You might be attracting someone who, if they discovered the way you are right now, let's say you attract someone and they encounter you, and they are radiating swords energy too, but it's a very different type of energy. They might be radiating energy that you might see as indecision or desire to, like, step back, where you, let's say, for whatever reason, you attract this potential person in your life. However, as they get closer, they start to sense and realize that there's a lot of, let's say, shenanigans going on that would make them question what's happening here, to the point where they would want to withhold any kind of decisions about what to do or how to do it in terms of this relationship, because they wouldn't want to get burned. Because it's very possible, it's very easy for another party to get burned by you, Taurus, if you are just stepped slightly out of line. So it's kind of a treacherous situation for you, Taurus. And you might have, like, ended up here against all of your wishes, but you're in the situation anyway. So you might attract someone who kind of understands that and gets that. But in order to, let's say, get through the relationship dynamic through this period, they might be holding themselves indecisive. In other words, they're saying, you know what? Now that I've met you, Taurus, I have to say, I need to take my time here. For now, I'm going to decide not to decide. I'm not going to do anything, because there's no point in doing anything when you're behaving like this, or whether this kind of energy is going on in your life. I want to know what's really going on, because there's the potential for all of this. And these are highly contradictory energies here. This is very noble, trustworthy, and stable, whereas this is in some ways highly unstable and could easily trigger a sense of wanting to retreat, because they might feel as though they are at risk by getting too close as you try to navigate your way through your own life in your own world right now, just to get by, just to get through, just to survive. In other words, they don't want to get pulled down into a situation with you that would not be healthy for them, because this could be, a problem or a situation or behaviors of your own making, whether you like it or know it or not. So it's almost like you're putting others at risk here. Okay, Taurus, it doesn't matter who it is, but it could be that others, whoever you attract, they could be at risk, and they could be very guarded and cautious about getting too close to you or relating to you, where it really, really counts, in the heart, in a way that has substance and structure and integrity for the long term. All right? So I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I'm getting really heavy on you, Taurus, but I feel obliged to call the story as I'm sensing it for now. So where does that put us in terms of the relationship itself? Because this is very difficult energy to handle here, especially if you are looking for stability and someone who could, where you could get this kind of energy reflected back to you, and where deep down you were wishing and hoping that you could be all this to yourself and for others. Okay, so let's have a look. The relationship itself, it's like it's a situation where, let's say you did attract someone who is attracted to you enough where they're willing to get that close to allow the dynamics of relationship to occur. What could happen is the relationship itself could be like a testing period for both parties, where both parties are observing and testing each other very clearly and very openly, very unambiguously, and finding out, like, excuse me, let's just say that's you, Taurus, over here, and you're saying, hey, do you kind of get me? Do you kind of dig me? Do you see what's going on here? And then let's say that's them, and they say, excuse me, Taurus, exactly what is going on here? I can see that you mean well in some ways, but there's something that's going on here that doesn't sit quite right. So you end up in a situation where it feels like it's to do with appreciation of self and other. The idea of the potential to be able to work as a team where there's a high level of trust and integrity and value that is established between yourself and a potential significant other. But it's deeply in question here because you yourself are deeply in question here, because your own integrity is at stake here. Even if you know it or not, or whether you're not aware of it, others might sense that, and they might be very cautious, so that in the context of a relationship, they might be going through an evaluation here, where they're looking at the situation as like, I wonder if this actually has a chance to work. Because what's the point of investing something in something if there's like deception going on here, if there's something going on which needs to be set right, but it's not happening? Where would that leave the other? And if the other party is sensing it, they would have full right and reason to be very cautious and be very careful about how the relationship is growing and evolving from here, because a really good, healthy relationship needs to have mutual appreciation, teamwork, and understanding that the long-term goal is worth it, and that even though it's just perhaps in the planning stage right now, the relationship has to have enough structure and identity and stability so that it can last the long term and it isn't built on falsehoods. Okay? So it's a very awkward, delicate reading so far. Let's have a look here. What would the prospects be? Okay, a lot of pain and suffering and basically a dead end to the whole thing. So it could indicate for you, Taurus, that it's almost like getting stuck in a box where there's no way out here, where if you ended up having to behave in ways that are less than honorable, and you ended up attracting situations or relationship dynamic that is not conducive to a relationship, to the point where the relationship itself is deeply in question, and the only prospective outcome is the end of it all, the end of all pain and suffering here, where it might be appropriate to see this relationship in a way doesn't even exist yet, because we're talking about singles and what you could attract, like what if. But let's say something does happen, then the potential is that all the flaws that exist or can exist inside a relationship would be exposed. Everything that is, let's say, bogus or unhealthy or untrue or built on falsehoods would eventually become exposed. In other words, all of the plans might have looked really good on paper, but the actual outcome is that it's not really quite true. It's so all of this becomes in jeopardy, where there's a potential to lose someone or something that could be, or could have, would have, should have been something potentially good, but it's not really possible for it to happen here because there are too many falsehoods which would eventually come to the surface. And with the Ten of Swords here, it's like, well, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's really, really good news for you, Taurus, to understand that these kind of dynamics ultimately don't work in the long term for a healthy relationship where this kind of energy would be much more appropriate, where there is solidity, integrity of substance, of personhood, and where this kind of, like, let's say, pain compounded by more pain, which would have triggered more, let's say, behavior to try and squirm out of it, but just makes it worse and worse and worse. In other words, it's one of those, perhaps you've been living under a situation for some time, Taurus, where, like, let's say, one lie compounded on top of another lie and just made it worse and worse and worse. But things continued anyway because dynamics may have occurred, and then you attract this energy, which is kind of a stark awareness about what's actually happening, about what could happen once the energy of integrity is brought in. And in so doing, what happens is the energy of lack of integrity is exposed about what is not healthy and what doesn't work and how that has to stop. So if you want to, you could treat this as a very, very valuable potential life lesson for you, Taurus, in that if you want a really solid, long-term, healthy relationship with the dignity and honor on both sides, to where, like, say, this card could replace this card, where the work in progress becomes complete and whole and noble, then this kind of behavior would have to stop. And you would have to literally stop yourself. Even if you could justify this behavior, it would have to stop because it doesn't work for anybody ultimately. All right, I don't want to like end up on a real downer there, but I don't know how to get out of it except to show you this card, that the potential for integrity is available to you, Taurus, by your conscious decisions. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please make the best of it. I hope it didn't hurt your feelings or touch any nerves. Bye-bye.